Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of From People Problems to Productivity. I'm Kirsten Rossvogel, and your team performance pro and family business coach. So, today's topic is how to fix your decision making friction. This is inspired by some current and past clients who have struggled with the results of um, uh, failing to share information and get a lot of participation in decision making. So, appropriate decision making. Uh, so, the good news is there's a simple fix. But so, let me talk about I want to share a story that happened years ago. Oh, and by the way, if you're seeing this, say hello. I want to know that you're here. I'd appreciate it. You can also, if you watch the replay, hit pound replay so I know that. If you have specific questions on a topic that you'd like me to discuss in the future, shoot me a DM or throw something in the comments. I'm happy to do that for you. So, and of course, if you want time on my calendar, super easy. The link is right here, myimpactacademy.com/book call. All right. So fixing your friction and decision making. Years ago, I was working with a client, a fairly large organization, mid, small to medium size, not humongous, but a larger organization. And the head of IT had come to me and said, please help me. I'm doing all the training for this huge software implementation that my team and I have been working on for well over a year. And we're doing the end user training, and everyone's throwing out ideas. And, they're 2 cents basically. From his perspective, it was 2 cents. And he said, please help me. How do I stop them? Well, my first question was, you gave them the opportunity to weigh in earlier in the process, right? His answer, no. So now, I was kind of at a loss because, wow, that should have happened. So, getting information never requires you. It doesn't create the obligation that you have to act on the information that you're collecting. But what if end users, people who are actually doing the job with the software that you're implementing, have some really valid ideas, perspectives, thoughts about what would be good for implementation? When you're doing implementation of a software, you don't want to make tons of changes, but they are probably the ones who also can kind of help you look at the software and then how will it fit into what we're doing. So anyway, this was absolutely a circumstance where there was value to be had at the beginning. They were way too far along in the process now to receive good feedback that would be helpful because, it was go time. The software was already implemented. But this one is such a concrete example of the kind of thing that can happen and the kind of thing, it's not always so glaring, but that can happen in your organization if you are not inspiring, looking for, seeking great input from the rest of your team while you're in decision-making mode. And the reason for this most often, either it's a time thing, it's just overlooked, or sometimes there's fear around I don't want to give up my decision-making power. And so I said there's some simple fixes. And, this also is inspired from a large organization that's acquiring lots of new entities. And, sometimes when you're in super growth mode too, I said sometimes it's just a time thing. They're just forgetting that there's value to be had from input from others, and they're just making decisions. And ultimately, it's decisions in a vacuum. And sometimes you can end up with siloed organizations as a result. But regardless, you're igniting friction. So again, every decision doesn't require tons of, another fear, it can slow down the process. Like we need to move swiftly. And so we just have to make decisions. But, are those the best decisions if you're not including the people who are actually on the ground where these, going to be impacted by the decisions that you're making? So I think there's always value to be had in taking input. One, better decisions. Two, employees tend to be more attached to the outcomes because they played a part. So here's a simple fix that a lot of my clients have implemented that have helped them um, kind of overcome the fear of I don't want to give up my decision making authority by sharing information. So I'm going to hide it for way too long and then just give my end result farther down the road. And it's just clarifying the objective of why you're sharing the information. So if you specify why I'm sharing the information, now you can share it without worrying that you're giving up your power to decide. Um, and it's being intentional as an organization to bake in the gathering data portion, bake that into the timeline of your decision making too. So, here are the three key ways to define the objectives of sharing information so that employees understand what their role is. Um, because this is what happens. So if you share information and you don't say, "Hey, I'm just FYIing you with this information," they might move into sharing their ideas, et cetera, and not realize the decision's already been made, or not realizing that they don't get to weigh in. But if you use these three ways of defining the objective of sharing information, you maintain your power if you want to decide, and you help them understand their role so they're not wasting time and feeling frustrated by the fact that they're not getting to weigh in right now. But hopefully, you've given the opportunity at some point to weigh in. So, here are the three key objectives that I would use. You can put these on agendas prior to a meeting so that people can prepare ahead of time or just announce it at the time. But so the first is I'm sharing this information as an FYI. So just for your information, we're not talking about it. I'm not taking input at this point. Again, hopefully there's been some opportunity, for end users or people who are going to be impacted by a decision to weigh in in some way, shape, or form. But and you're not just announcing. Sometimes it happens, but in general, as a general practice for your business, I would bake in an opportunity for people to weigh in and give their perspectives. Again, doesn't obligate you to listen or follow through or make all decisions based on what people are telling you, because sometimes there are other forces that impact decisions. It's good to let people know why decisions were made too. So as you're FYIing, if you've asked for their input prior to, but you weren't able to make a decision based on some of the information they shared or some of the ideas they wish you would have implemented, a little bit of the why at least, about why you went the direction that you did. But so the one is FYI. So for your information, we're done having discussion. This is just for your information. The second is I'm sharing this and I'm taking an input. I want your ideas, but I'm deciding. So I'm sharing this information for discussion, but I will make a decision later based on your input. Again, when you're doing any of these, you want to follow through with thanking them for the input that they've given and a little bit of the why of the decision you ultimately end up making. All of this is about helping you make the best decisions for your business and to decreasing the friction that can happen, fixing the friction that can happen through your decision making as a leader. The third kind is collaboration. I want your input and we're going to discuss and decide together what the best outcome is, what the best next step is, whatever the decision is. So let's take a look at the example that I used that was from years ago about software implementation. So it would have been really smart for that IT. And again, this is like huge across the organization. It was going to be the accounting and inventory and production, and everything was all intermingled. So it impacted the whole organization. Every department was going to be switching and using this software. So what would have made good sense at a minimum, so IT maybe didn't want to they didn't want to give away any of their final decision-making authority because they were the ones that needed to determine what amount they could modify the software, because then that's ongoing. You have to, every time there's an update, you might have to redo something because of that initial implementation if you change things, if you have like specialized programming. So, but the fear of giving up that authority, if that had them not asking for input at all, now way down the road, you have really high friction, a lot of very frustrated employees. So a better thing would have been to say, of the three options, number two, um, I am going to ask for your input, but we IT are going to make the final decisions, and we'll share a little bit about why we had to do what we did. But thank you for your input. And, so we were able to hear your input and implement thus and such based on your input here. But here we had to go this route, but we heard you and thank you for your input. So that would have been a much better way for this organization to launch into a software implementation. But think in terms of all the different ways that you could be better off by implementing all the different ideas from your team in the decision-making process. So whether it's an event where you're going to have all kinds of people from the organization participating. Um, your sales department might have some customers who are coming, so they might have some input. Your customer service team might hear what your customers love. So they might have some input. Marketing is going to want some input. Your production team, anyway. So think of all the different perspectives that you have on the team. Bake in time and opportunity for people to share input in the decisions that you're making in your business. And then don't worry, you're not going to give up decision-making authority because you're going to let them know, I'm FYIing you. I'm sharing this information so we can have a discussion and you can share your perspective, your input, give your ideas. But I'm deciding. Or 3, we're going to have a whole discussion. We're all going to share and we're all going to decide together. So if you stop and think about it, most of your decision-making conversations or information sharing conversations can boil down to those 3 simple categories. And if you just share the objective so that people know their role, it should help you, 1, in creating better decisions, 2, helping more people be a part, which is why you have the better decisions. And now they're more invested in the outcomes. And 3, you can share without fear of giving away your decision-making authority or making people feel frustrated because they don't get to participate in decision-making because you've told them why you're sharing. You've told them what their role is at this point. So you give them the opportunity at the appropriate time, implement and bake it into your final decisions where you can, communicate how you were able to use their very valuable information and where you weren't able to. And then FYI at the end. All right. Hope that's helpful. Thanks so much. Again, connect with me. Send me, throw a comment below. Send me a private message or book a time on my calendar if you'd love to connect. So that is at myimpactacademy.com/book call. Hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for listening, and I will look forward to connecting with you on another broadcast or through a quick little 30-minute call. All right, take care. Bye.